All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Green lights, yes, green lights. That's what I need to see. And we'll see if anybody can hear me. That's not the right button. Go back, go away. That's the right button. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. All right, you got that going on. And people seem to be here. Once we get that running and once somebody says they can hear me, we'll test the visual part of our presentation and all shall be well, other than the market, which is once again down. That's okay. Wouldn't be any fun if it always went up, right? Let's see what's going on. Not so bad. We're only down 12 on the S&P. We're down 150 on the Dow. NASDAQ's down 20. It's not a big percentage. It's like a quarter point, right? The Russell is still positive. They're really working that Russell, working those small caps. All right, let's see. Show my screen. Hi, guys. When you see the scary chart, let me know and we'll get this thing started. Oof, look at oil. Ooh, yeah, ooh, look at oil. Big surge. I was so caught up in the stuff I was doing today, I didn't even look at the report. So we'll all be surprised by that. We'll see how that looks. Obviously, it looked pretty damn good because oil took off. That's yesterday. Wait, no, this is today. This is this morning. There's when the report came out, and look at that jump. We went from 92.50 to 93.80. Getting positive reviews on the video, so I think we're good to go. So anyway, so let's see what happened with the oil. Obviously, there was a draw. Well, nothing's ever obvious with oil. Petroleum status report, 1 o'clock edition. Plus. All right. What week? September 15th? That doesn't sound right. No, that can't be right. Wait, when was September 15th? No, there's no way that's the right one. It should be September 20 something. There's the 15th. All right, well, this is useless. Are we sure that's what you can do? Well. All right. That is not good. Come on, government. What are we paying you for? All right, let's see what the 1030 report looks like. That's 22nd. Blah. Commercial crude inventories decreased 2.2 million barrels. That's not a big deal. They're 4% below the 5-year average. Gasoline increased by 1 million barrel, offsetting half of it. 2% below the, that's an interesting catch up. Gasoline did some amazing catching up recently. To the 5-year average for this time of year, finished gasoline inventories decreased while blending components. Distillates increased by 0.4. This is not even a good report. I don't know what they're talking about. It's a little. We'll try and find the other one later, but that's not a particularly robust report for demand. I don't know what's going on. What else? EIA petroleum stands now showing fuel ethanol. Blah 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 blah. And this is September 15th still. All right. I don't know. No good reason for it to go. And when there's no good reason, what do? Well, you buy more or you sell more. So let's go. Active trader, selling oil, already short 2 contracts. So let's sell another one. Uh-oh. Another one. Oh, you bastard. Look how it skipped away from me. See, that's fake. This is fake. They didn't actually want to sell it. They were not. The second I put in an actual sell order, they jumped away. All right. 65. Well, now I'm going to be pissed. Still. Oh. Yeah, you bastard. It's like a game of cat and mouse. Come on, you want to pretend it's higher? Let's see. You really want to sell? See that? It's fake. If it were, oh, there it goes. If it's real, you get a fill. That's bullshit. All right, so we'll leave it that for now. It's a $5,000 loss. Got 3 contracts, average of 92. 92 is way down here. Definitely need another contract. So if I add another short contract at 94, that's on 4 contracts. That means they're all going to reduce by 50. So I'll be up to 90. I'll go to 92.50 on 4 contracts, which is basically this line. At least that's a realistic chance of happening. This is kind of tough. This line we might make it. So basically, I don't have to watch it. I know I want to sell another one at 94 if it gets me there. Oof, it's so high. All right. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to leave that sell order up and we'll see if it gets filled. Meanwhile, yeesh. Meanwhile, what's going on? Look at the S&P. The S&P is down at 4,300. It's bouncing off of 4. It's not really, it hasn't bounced yet, but it's bouncing off 4,300. That is not very attractive. Where's my tea? Natural gas is smashing up against $3 as well. Gasoline's shot back up. Everything's shot back up. Must be missing some oil news. Let's see. Oh, I'll give you another chance. Bastard. All right, let's see what Mr. Bing has to say about this topic. Where's my Bing icon? Oh, confusing. Oh, that thing, right? No. Oh, yeah. No, what the frick is this? Why is every single one of these things a go to webinar window? Oh, here you go, Microsoft something. Your browser has been updated. Choose Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge is so super duper. I don't care about any of that. Oh, here you go, Bing. Okay. Can I get rid of this? That's awful. Why do they have to do this? They're always like screwing around. Ask me anything. Okay. Why did oil climb so high today? Let's see if he knows. All right, meanwhile, look at all these windows. And they have nothing to do with what I'm interested in. Ooh, this is weird, though. I have like 2 tabs of windows open. Sidebar, editor, web capture. How about let me use a freaking full screen? Oh, that? Oh. Oh, maybe I do like that feature. Interesting. All right. Keep an open mind. I'm sorry I don't have access to real-time information. What? What? Holy crap. Are you serious? What was yesterday's API oil Inventory. You know, I have the same problem. We have the same problem with ChatGPT, which is obviously what Bing uses also. Okay, he got this one right though. So API showed a decrease of 5.2. That was a big draw. The API reported gasoline increased 1.8. Distillate decreased 1.9. So the API showed a much bigger draw. How about today's EIA? Petroleum status report. You know, my problem is I like talking to it because it can be faster than if you type, but I don't like it when it talks back to me because I can read faster than he can speak. And I absorb the information better when I read it. So it's kind of annoying. Now, here you go. He's got the information. Oh no, will be available. Oh, that's crazy. See, this is what's going on in ChatGPT too. It seems to have a much harder time with more current information. They changed something and screwed it up. That's the problem with relying on this AI stuff. Because somehow he doesn't have today's information, which is crazy. It's going to be a problem. All right. Fortunately, I know how to do this without the robots. But I was hoping to have some help. So let's see. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them, but I intend to go over our watch list because we just updated some stuff. So let's start with that. Let's say today, go ahead and do it. Go ahead. I don't care. Pick a day. Then what happens? Go ahead and restart if you can. What is this tab? Enhanced ad privacy in Chrome. Okay. Get rid of those. Don't want those. Wow. Talk about being difficult. This is supposed to be PhilStockWorld. Why is this up? All right, but that's not a bad idea. Let's take a look at these charts. Why is it being so slow? It's stupid. This is a problem. Okay, that was not the futures charts. Not responding. Oh dear. Oh, come on, man. I hope the webinar is working properly. If it's being so slow, doesn't seem to indicate a problem. Bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, 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 bum. Look at this, everything's stuck. Oh, oh, unexpected shutdown. Did not find any threats. Is it scanning? Is that why it was so bad? All right. Well, meanwhile, back in the jungle, let's see if we can get Chrome back up and running. Oh, yeah, now it's moving. Didn't ask for this, so let's go away. Now we go back to the futures charts, which are not there. Google. Yes, be my default browser. Do not let What is this crap? Web browser. That's the problem. See, Microsoft's constantly trying to take over Google Chrome. It's always reasserting itself. It's like some desktop battle for dominance. All right, now I feel like we're going somewhere. Got rid of that pesky bastard. See if we can get the open freaking report working. Nope, still the wrong one. All right, I give up. I surrender. That's Stockopedia. I don't see any FinViz, so I've got to basically go over here. And that's really not helping. Where are you making a new tab over here? Futures. There we go. Indexes. Wow, that's ugly. So, you know, we're staircasing down, and that's going to be more obvious. This is a daily view. Holy shit. I was going to say it'll be more obvious in the daily view, but there, oh God. Okay, so we're staircasing down. You can see it in any view you want. It's not good. You know, we got the small picture and the big picture, and even the bigger picture is starting to get very ugly. So, you know, look, where's your support? Where, you know, there obviously your support's over here. It's way down at 40. So you're lucky if 4,200 holds. If 4,200 doesn't hold, you're down to 4,000, which is where we expect this to ultimately go. And the VIX is still only at 19. So people see, I mean, you're not even maxing out on nervousness yet. And, you know, I mean, look, as I was saying the other day, it's not like there's nothing to worry about. There's certainly something to worry about. The consumers are running out of money. People can't afford houses. People can't afford cars. And how do you fix that? You either fix that in two ways. You either fix that by having people, all right, several things have happened that we've been talking about for the last few weeks. People are maxed out on their credit cards, okay? People who own a home, even if they have equity in their home, like in 2007, we stretched out the crisis law because people borrowed against their homes to pay for things, and that was so they went completely into debt on their homes. And mortgages back then were 6%. It wasn't that different than it is now. But now with inflation, people's budgets are super stretched. So if you borrow $100,000 at 7%, okay, all you're doing is paying your current expenses that you couldn't afford, right? You need to borrow the $100,000 to pay to maintain your lifestyle. People aren't really borrowing the $100,000 to have a party. They're borrowing it because they can't afford the things they used to be able to buy anymore. So you take out a home loan, you pay $100,000, but now you need $700 more a month just to pay the interest. Plus, you probably have to pay back the loan in, even if they stick it on your mortgage and make it 30 years, you're still going to be paying a $100,000 loan for 30 years, which has got to be a few hundred a month, like through, let's say, $350. So you'd be paying. So now you're going to pay $1,050 a month to borrow $100,000. You're going to be paying it for 30 years. So you're going to be paying back $360,000 to borrow $100,000. That's not a good business decision. So the home piggy bank thing isn't working. That's why we're hitting this cliff so suddenly. And we said it would happen in September. That was what we said at the beginning of the summer. That's why we cashed out our portfolios. We didn't know if it would come early, and God forbid we're sitting there with all that money in those old portfolios. There's no way I want to risk that. So we made our new portfolios in May. We were like, so what, doesn't matter. It's much smaller amounts. And the exercise is obviously to build portfolios and protect them and learn how to do that. So that's what we're doing. Meanwhile, though, everything is happening exactly the way we thought it would. We're here in September. A lot of things are converging at the same time. So people can't afford to leave their homes. You can't leave a home And we've done this before. I never know who, you know, the thing is different people are on the webinar, so it's tough because I don't like to be redundant, but on the other hand, I don't want to plow ahead and make no sense to anybody. Mortgage calculator. Oh, let me test my $100,000 theory. So if you borrow $100,000 at 8 Jesus, is that really the interest now? Oh, it's a lot more than I thought. It's $750 a month. Oh, that includes the interest. So, okay. All right. So $750 a month. So if you borrow $100,000, you're immediately taking on a $9,000 a year expense. And that's for 30 years. So you're going to pay back, probably says so somewhere. You pay back 9,000 times 30 is $270,000. So you pay back $270,000 to borrow $100,000. That is not fun. Now, the other problem is, so let's say I live in a $500,000 home and I have, let's say I paid off, let's say we put $100,000 down, so we had a $400,000 mortgage and we paid half of it off, whatever that would be after about 15 years, maybe more, but you paid half of it off. So you owe $200,000 now on your $500,000 home. And let's even say that you have a $600,000 home because it went up in value, right? So it went up 20% in value. So now you have a $600,000 home, you have a $200,000 mortgage to pay off. So what happens? You're currently paying, well, you're not paying $1,490, that's the problem. You're paying the same $400,000 you borrowed is what you're still paying. You're paying $2,966 a month, right? You want to get out of your home, and if you get out of your home, you're going to pull, remember the numbers, you're going to have $400,000 in equity, let's keep that in mind, and you're going to pay off your $200,000 remaining balance, but that balance is being paid out at $2,966 a month. All right, so that's how you get rid of that. But now you've got $400,000. You live in a $600,000 home, and you cashed out of your home for $400,000. You only put $100,000 into your home. You should be happy, right? Well, I'm sorry, you put $100,000 in, and then you paid $3,000 a month for the last 15 years, which is $450,000. So you've actually paid $650,000 for the home you bought for $500,000 15 years ago. Follow? You've already paid the entire balance of the mortgage over that period of time. This is why buying homes is not really a good investment. See, it feels like a good investment, but it isn't really. If it wasn't for the tax breaks, it wouldn't work at all. And that's why home prices are so distorted. It makes, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, so here's your problem. You live in a $600,000 home. You're paying $3,000 a month. All right, plus taxes are creeping up on you. Don't forget, we've had that conversation also before. It's one thing they don't talk about in all these calculations is how the property taxes and the school taxes and all that stuff are going up and up and up, and that's forcing people out of their homes. But you're sitting here with your $3,000 mortgage and you have $400,000 worth of equity if you sell your home for $600,000. Plus, don't forget, you got to pay the realtor $36,000 also. So you're only going to walk away with $400,000 minus $36,000, not to mention what you spend to move and all that crap, right? So let's say that's $10,000, and I'm being very generous, minus $10,000. All right, so you're only going to walk away after you bought a $500,000 home 15 years ago, paid $3,000 a month, or $36,000 a year for 15 years. That's like $400,000. So you paid $400,000 back to the bank, and they're telling you still owe them $200,000. So you sell your home for $600,000, give the bank $200,000 to pay off your mortgage, and you give the realtor whatever the hell it works out to, $36,000 to sell it. And yeah, and that's right. That's 34. It should be 3. Did I do the wrong thing? It's 400,000 minus, we said 36,000, right? 6%. So 36,000, 364. That's what I thought. So now you have $364,000 left to buy a house, right? But you just left a $600,000 house. Now you got to find another house. So you're going to significantly downsize. Even if you find a $500,000 house that you like just as much as the $600,000 house you just sold, right? You've got $364 to put down on it. And so your mortgage is going to be $136,000. All right, so you've taken all the money you pulled out of your home here. You buy a smaller house, it's $500,000, and now you've reduced your mortgage by $2,000 a month. That's the way you have to make it work. But not everybody has the equity. Not everybody has a profit in their home. So some people can do this and save some money, but some people aren't going to save any money at all. Or some people aren't going to save enough money to be worth it. That's why people are not selling their homes. That's why you have a low inventory of homes on the market. It doesn't always work out for people. If you've been in your home 15, 20 years, you paid off a significant chunk, you can do this. As long as you don't need that money, don't forget, if you needed the $100,000, if you had to take a $250,000 loan, a $200,000 loan, now you're only saving yourself $1,300 or $1,200 on your mortgage. And that's by taking a 20% smaller house. So everything is connected. And of course, an apartment, think about, an apartment that you would get. You got your $364,000. Let's say you decide to get an apartment for $3,000 a month. That's acceptable. And that's what people do when they retire and they make a big mistake. Because you go down to get the apartment, and that's going to cost you $36,000 a year. That means you can only live for 10 years off this money. Now, if you can put it into something and save it and make 10%, that's okay, because then you're going to keep your principal. But then the rent goes up and you're screwed. But that's the same with the property taxes. So everything is just a mess right now. So meanwhile, that's happening. Meanwhile, the property insurance, that's another thing's going up tremendously. Property insurance, especially where I live in Florida, California, it's like property insurance is completely out of control now. And well, it should be, because we have constant natural disasters like threatening our properties. And not to mention the whole state is about to be engulfed by the ocean. It's also a problem. So that causes a low inventory, and you certainly can't get a bigger house. Oh, that's what I was going to say. I forgot about that. So you've got your $364,000. Let's say you go to get a $750,000 house. So well, what the frick? 750,123 minus your 364 seems like a good amount of money, right? Oh, I see. I've got to do it myself. So minus 750,123 means 386. So your mortgage is 386,000. And look what happens. You're right back to the same thing. You haven't changed anything. So you've moved into a $750,000 house, but that's more tax, more insurance, and everything else. So the people who trade up are not getting any equity out of their home. You've got to go, instead of taking a $750,000 house with all the money you put into your original house that you bought, you basically can't afford it. You're not changing anything. You've got yourself a bit of a nicer home. Oh, don't forget your old one was worth 600, so it's only not a huge step up. But that's where you'd be. You'd be able to afford a $750,000 home without increasing it, and you've got to go way down to like $500,000 just to save yourself $1,000 a month. And that's for people who have paid off half of their home. So there's a lot of trade-offs that people have to make, and they can't afford it. Also, then your car insurance is going up, your car is going up, your groceries are going up. And imagine if you're on a fixed income and all this is happening to you. I imagine I imagine a lot of you guys don't have to imagine that. I think it's probably happening. So what's happening? So there's no piggy bank. I'll start with that conversation. There's no piggy bank for the house. People can't just take money out of their homes like they used to. And God forbid you do, you're going to be completely trapped in your home, right? That's what that, and the bank wants that. They're encouraging that. They want you to re-up your mortgage at 7%. They're salivating over getting you to move from 3% money to 7% money. So yeah, of course they want you to do that, and plus you're going to commit to that for 30 years. And meanwhile, rates go down, and it seems like, oh well, I'll just refinance. Sure, you can refinance and pay another point and a half to refinance. That's how the banks make all their money. So meanwhile, so people are at the end of their ropes. They can't use their home for a piggy bank. All their expenses are going up at the same time, not just a few things, like everything is going up at the same time. And then you've got, what was I going to say? Oh, right. So something's got to give, right? Oh, and the credit cards are maxed out. We talked about that. You could see it. We had a chart the other day that was very clearly showing that people have simply completely drained out all of their savings. They're gone. And we saw that trend. What's today? It's Wednesday, right? So we saw this trend happening. Tuesday, not this Tuesday though. Pretty sure it was Monday we talked about this, or yesterday, one of those days. Was it yesterday? I feel like it was yesterday, but it's hard to tell. Not that chart. Not that chart. Not that chart. That chart. Aha. So look, the government threw money at us, which caused us to save money. Again, this is the 2020 zone, right? So 2020, 2021. So during 2020, they threw money at us. We weren't going out and spending it, so we got more and more money in the piggy bank. And we didn't go out, we didn't go out, we didn't go out, we started to go out, we started to go out, we started to go out. Inflation came up and up and up. And we spent and spent and spent because we still had our piggy bank, and we spent and spent and spent and spent and spent. And oh no, we're out of money. And now, in the last 6 weeks, and so, oh, I'm sorry. So the point being that obviously we saw this. This is week 40. Okay, in week 33 at the beginning of the summer, out around here, this was still the chart. It looked like this. We could tell when it was going to cross. We could tell when people would run out of money. Zero is out of money. So it's not like, it's not like I'm some brilliant prognosticator or whatever. I know how to read a chart. I can see what's happening. And we talked about this at the beginning of summer. That's why that's why we cashed out. That's why back in April. So this was 10 weeks ago, and April was like 20 weeks ago, right? So somewhere around here, this is when we cashed out because we saw people running out of money. We saw that the spending power was dwindling, and it was going to start impacting companies. When? I don't know. But we were up so much money in the last set of portfolios, it was crazy to leave it on the table. There was no good way to, that was my problem. There was no good way to protect it. That's what we had discussed. I was like, we will have to spend a huge amount of money, in the long-term and short-term portfolio, which were, they must have been 7 million combined at the time or something like that. I mean, this is insane. And we would have had to spend about $1 million to protect it. And I'm like, why are we going to do that? What's the point? Why don't we just take the money off the table, start with small new portfolios, and move from there? So that's what we did. So in April we cashed out, and in May we started buying some new stuff again. That's where we are now. Because just in case we were wrong, we wanted to be in a position to make money. Fact of the matter is, we didn't make that much money. It wasn't that great of a summer because it went up and down and up and down. And it would have been nauseating to try to do that with those huge portfolios we had. So we just backed it off and put the money back in our pockets. So much more nimble, much easier to handle now, not a problem. It's just more of an intellectual exercise to say, can we have good balance during the downturn that we expected to happen? And here we are at the point where we expected it to happen. Why? We could see it. I was talking about this at the beginning of the year, which was back here at the beginning of this year. We were talking about, I mean, what's that? Yeah, of course, 40. Yeah, of course, if it's 40 weeks ago, that was the beginning of the year. That makes sense. These are months, are they? Oh, I'm sorry, these are months. Sorry. These are months. So 12 months ago was here. The beginning of the year was here. And this was April when we knew we were in serious trouble. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. So beginning of the year is here. We've been on the slope for a while. This is April. And I was like, well, I'm like, fuck it, time to go. We got to get out of this place. Then it went down and down and down since. So, but still, we knew it was going to happen in September. That was the bottom line. So, and it wasn't just this, it's obviously many things. It was like you could see that the Fed was maxing out and the government's maxing out and the debt was out of control. It was, I said it was going to hit 34 million this year, 34 trillion, and it will hit 34 trillion at the end of the year. So a lot of shit's happening at the same time. So the government, so being that the debt is hitting $34 trillion at the end of the year, being that it was also the debt ceiling time again, that we knew it was going to be the debt ceiling time again. These are all scheduled events. You just have to believe in the fact that the government is too dysfunctional to actually just go smoothly past it. So given all that, it seemed that the government was not going to be in the mood to throw another couple of $1 trillion of stimulus. We didn't know about March, by the way, and that's a whole nother thing, because in March, we did throw $2 trillion at the banks to stop them from collapsing. And meanwhile, that's not fixed. It's only fixed in that we threw $2 trillion at them. Next time they have another crisis, we're going to need another $2 trillion to throw at them. So that put the nail in the coffin, and that was March, don't forget. That's another reason we cashed out in April, because any chance of having a stimulus disappeared with the banking crisis. That was our stimulus money. If there was going to be more stimulus, that was it, and it was gone. It went to the banks instead of to the people. And that meant it wouldn't go, and because it got sucked up by the banks, it didn't go into the economy either. So there was nothing. So there had to be a negative effect on GDP going forward. All that is why we've been playing it cautious. And now you can kind of see why, because it's happening. So people are running out of money. People have maxed out their credit cards. $1 trillion is a lot of money to charge on your credit cards, and that's only the credit card portion of $5 trillion of revolving debt, which includes student loans, home loans, etc. So there's $5 trillion of total debt, and the credit cards are on 1 trillion of it, and the student loans are 1 trillion of it, and then home loans are basically the rest. Home and auto loans, sorry, are basically the rest. And that's the $5 trillion consumer debt bomb that we're sitting on also. Then corporations have another couple of $1 trillion of debt that we don't even talk about, because we love to talk about how China is so irresponsible. Meanwhile, our corporations have $2 trillion something in debt that they're rolling over at higher rates. So, like, yeah, no shit. We're running out of money. We head into recession. Consumers don't have any money. Companies don't have any money. And the government doesn't have any money. What do you think is going to happen? That's where we are now. So, like I said, plenty of things to worry about, and they're real, and they're happening now. Oh, and now Biden is not Biden's fault. He was trying not to, but now the student loan forgiveness thing is expiring. And millions of students are going to go bankrupt because they don't have the money. Don't have the money. So we're in this cycle now. And of course, you know, we talked about what bullshit it was when everybody said, oh, inflation's going to stop and it's going to reverse and the Fed's going to reverse their thing and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's not going to happen because people can't afford a car. People can't afford a house. people can't pay their basic bills. We are nowhere near the end of an inflation cycle because people haven't gotten the raises that allow them to afford to live in this economy. And the problem everybody has, the problem that the investors have, and the problem the CEOs have, and the problem the analysts have, is they don't understand the complexity and the long-term push and pull of inflation. And I talked about that a long time ago, because I talked about, like, you know, if you didn't live through the 80s, if you weren't, and again, not live doesn't mean if you were born in 1980, because you didn't know what the hell was going on, you're a kid. If you weren't an adult in the 80s and understood the dynamics of the economy to at least some extent, then how could you possibly? So I'm barely there. I was 17 in 1980. So, and I'm 60 now. So a guy 60 years old, and again, a guy 60 years old who was freakishly aware of economics and stuff because of my grandfather used to teach me all this shit, you know, so I had a different, I don't think there's many 60-year-olds who understand it as well as I do, because I paid very close attention to what was happening then. Also happened to travel a lot, so I went to many countries during these inflationary cycles, and I saw all sorts of ups and downs. I remember in Italy, when I was a teenager, I think I was 16 in Italy, and all the restaurants used to have their menus on chalkboards because the prices would be changed daily based on the value of the lira. Sometimes not even daily. Sometimes, like, at breakfast it was one thing, and at lunch it was another thing, and at dinner it was another thing. Like, literally, they had to change their prices to keep up with the deflation. It was mostly, for them, it was mostly deflation of their currency, but it would go bouncing up and down and bouncing up and down. But you had no idea how much money you would need to buy the same food 2 days later at a restaurant. It would be that you go for the same meal, it would be a totally different price. It was all super cheap. So we were Americans, so for us it was all super cheap. I didn't, at the time, I never thought about the dynamics of what was going on, but it was just crazy, and I was aware of it was crazy. But you don't really think about how it affects the food guy who delivers the food and the person, and when they've got it on the boat, they can't mark it up and down all the time. They're guessing. They're hoping that by the time it gets there, they're going to make a profit with the boat with the boatload of pineapples they purchased or whatever. Because you don't know. That's crazy, right? You start building a house for a certain price, and at the end of the building the house, you lost all your money because it cost way more than you thought to build the house. So that's extreme, but that was happening in Italy. That happened in South America a lot, Central America, even that was happening. You know, even Canada had crazy ups and downs in prices. The strongest currency in 1980 was the pound. It wasn't the dollar, it was a pound. Nixon had taken us off the gold standard in like 72, 73, something like that. And that made the dollar go blue also. The pound was still backed by silver at the time, so it was worth like $3.50 back then. And there was no euro. You had to go change your money everywhere you went. You had to change it to local currency. But you were always better off walking around with pounds. Anyway, so, right, the push-pull. So the thing is that you have to live it to see it. When I was a kid and I had jobs, and I'm talking 15, 16, 17, all the way into my 20s, you would quit a job if you didn't get a 2-week pay at a Christmas bonus, and if you didn't get a 10% raise for the next year, you would quit your job. You'd be like, screw you, I'll find a job that pays me better. Like, just to keep the employees, that's what was normal, was a 2-week bonus and a 10% raise. That was a normal amount. If you got a 5% raise, it meant that your boss was telling you that you suck and you should probably go somewhere else. And that was just how companies had to deal with it until there was an equilibrium reached. And that's the thing people don't get. You don't reach an equilibrium by calling it. And that's why you've got the writers go on strike, the actors go on strike, Now all the hotel workers in Vegas are going on strike. The auto workers go on strike. Everybody's going to go on strike until they get to the point where they have adequate raises. And how inadequate is it? Well, the auto workers are telling you, and their math is right. And I went over this last week. I don't want to get into it now, but their math is correct to make up for the raises they didn't get. And this is what they are terrible at conveying this information to the people. It's not that they want a 40% raise this year. They want a 10% raise each year for the next 4 years to make up for the fact that for the last 20 years, they have made it basically no gain in salary at all. So it's not about addressing, it's not about getting a 10% raise this year, next year, and next year. And of course, the auto companies are better at messaging and focusing, and they've got networks that will deliver these messages for them. And they make it seem like these greedy auto workers are trying to steal everything. That's bullshit. They took cuts, you know, in 2008, whatever, they took cuts to keep the auto companies alive. They cut their benefits, they cut their pay, they cut their this, they cut their that. Now, the auto companies were supposed to roll it back in when they started making profits. They, of course, did not do that. And here we are, you know, 15 years later. And the auto workers are now saying, okay, this is bullshit. You're making record profits. And that's the thing. They're making record profits. CEO pay is up 300%, that kind of crap. So they're like, and it's not CEO pay only. And again, bad messaging. It's board pay, CEO pay, management pay. All the top brass of the company are making a fortune. The shareholders are making a fortune. The dividends are getting paid out like crazy. The stockholders are making a fortune. And the workers who made the whole thing possible are completely screwed. And now inflation is killing them. And inflation is freaking 6%. So the 10% raise is only a 4% raise after you take out the inflation. They just want to get something. They just want to get back to like being able to live. And that's the same whether people have a union representation or not. Eventually, everybody reaches a breaking point where they have to say to their boss. And you know, again, there hasn't been inflation for so long. It's hard to. I'm sure a lot of people just never even experienced it. We literally haven't had inflation since the 80s. So that's like the 90s and the O's and the 10s. And now we're starting the 20s. So 30 straight years of no inflation. People forgot what it is. But what it is prices go up for whatever reason. And in this case, it was COVID and supply chain disruption and commodity shortages and so on and so forth, because a lot of people all over the world weren't working. And so it was tough to get certain things and whatever. And also, by the way, that's weird too, because you have a global slowdown, but the government all the world governments put so much money into stimulus that you don't have a consumption slowdown. You have a work slowdown, a productivity slowdown, factories are closed, things are not being produced. We ate up all the materials because instead of having a normal slowdown where everybody would say, okay, we've got to make do with less and we're going to all cut back, the government threw money at the problem to make everybody happy. Everybody stayed home and consumed and bought shit on Amazon and whatever, and bought big screen TVs and whatever crap they wanted to do while they were home, because they were getting paid whether they worked or not. And that caused us to consume a stockpile of goods and services that were diminished. And then when work reopened up, we don't have enough stuff to make other things, and it all started falling apart and things got more and more expensive. Not only that, but all this money was in circulation that the government had printed, and you have a huge inflation boom. So that's step one. Then step two, the workers get tapped out, can't take it anymore, demand higher wages because they're starving, and that's what does it. People don't like to ask for raises. And again, in the 80s, it was not even it wasn't even an ask. It was just, that's the way life was. How much am I getting paid next year, Mr. Boss? I want to plan for my next year. I don't know what I'm getting. And if it wasn't 10% up from where you were pissed off. Because it was already embedded. By the time I started working, which was, let's say I mean, I had paper when I was 11. That was 70. That was 74. But let's say 5 years after that, so basically 78, 79. When I was like 15, when I was about 15 years old and I had real jobs, then it was that. But it was just expected. That was just the way it was. So I don't know what happened at the earlier stages, but that's what's happening now. At the earlier stages, before I started being a real worker, the pattern had already set in. So when I started working, I just knew from my fellow employees by being indoctrinated into whichever, first I worked at a deli, and then I worked at a restaurant. And by the way, the raise, the 10% raise was like 20 cents. I was getting $2 an hour plus tips. So it's at 10% was like 20 cents. But you fought for that 20 cents. You definitely wanted that 20 cents more. And it was a given because everybody in the place expected their raises. So you're indoctrinated into that culture. We don't have that culture anymore. People are terrified to ask for raises. I told my daughter, he does interviews and they don't talk about salary at the interview. And I'm like, then what are you doing? And she goes, well, they give you, they say a range of salaries, and you go to an interview and they offer you a job, and then you find out what you're going to make. And I'm like, what kind of bullshit is that? I'm like, why would I even sit through the interview if they're not going to pay me what I want? It's like, I'm going to sit there and go through the process, but that's what they want to do. They want to hook you in and make you do the work. Just like when they make you fill out something on the internet, and then they won't show you the thing you wanted to look at until you pay them or agree to do a free trial or something like that. They want you invested into the process. So it's the same thing with interviews in companies. They want you invested into the process. They want you to want the job, and that makes you more likely to settle for a lower wage. It's all, all this stuff has been over the last 40 years has really been they've applied all the psychological tricks to these things now. We were so innocent back in the day. But anyway, so I was just appalled because I said to Jackie, I said, I'm like, this is a negotiation. You're providing them a value of your service. You deserve to say, I need this much money. And you can say that up front because it's a job. There's supposed to be a mutual thing. It's not like they're doing you some huge favor by hiring you. Anywho, so again, it's very difficult for modern current workers, especially young ones, but everyone's a young one because nobody's gone through this unless you're a 60 plus. You've never gone through this. And never going through it means you don't understand the process. And I'm telling you, I only start to understand the process now because now I'm seeing the early stages that I never really went through myself previously. But these early stages are, you push people to their limits. They can no longer afford to live, and it forces them to finally go to the boss and say, hey, I can't live like this. Just like the auto workers, the Screen Actors Guild, blah, blah. They've been living like this for ages. This is the last straw. They can't afford it anymore. So they cannot stay at this job at this wage. It is no longer viable for them to get up and go to work. And that's the same with the minimum wage workers, which again, we've talked about endlessly, but this is the concept of the minimum wage workers, is $7.25 an hour, 20 states still $7.25 an hour. 40 hours a week times $7.25, 40 times 7.25 is $290 a week. And from that, they're still going to deduct not much, but like 10 or 12% from that. So you're going to end up with $260, $250 to take home. As poor as you are, they're still going to take $50 from you. That's a sickness right there. They should be like, there should be a government thing that says if you don't make 500 a week, we're going to make up the difference, not the other way around, right? And then you're supposed to live your week with $250 after working 40 hours. You're supposed, and they don't give you lunch anymore. When we used to work at like McDonald's or something, we got free food. Any restaurant job, you get free food. That was an absolute. Like there was no question you would eat wherever you worked. They didn't charge you for it or anything like that. That was unheard of. Believe me, I was a waiter at many places. You never paid for food. That was like a perk of working in a restaurant. And frankly, McDonald's people would come home with like bags full of food for their friends. I don't know if that was illegal or not, but it was just perfectly normal. Like whenever you knew a friend who worked at McDonald's, Burger King, or something like that, they would always come home with a great big, like a shopping bag full of food that was maybe mistake food or whatever the hell it was. We didn't care. We just ate it. So anyway, so meanwhile, because this is the thing now I hear. I mean, I see this now, like these stupid freaking jobs like McDonald's, they give you a discount or some tiny discount or something like that, but it's still going to make you pay for your lunch while you're working there. Even though they throw away, 10 garbage pails full of different kinds of food from mistakes or whatever that they've done, they can't give a freaking hamburger to an employee. That's sick thing. Anywho, obviously you can't live on that, okay? It literally cost more money to a plantation owner to have a slave on a weekly basis than you get paid for working in a job. It is, they call it wage slavery. It is wage slavery. You're getting a salary, but you're actually a slave. You have absolutely no money after you pay to go to work and to eat and to put on clothes and to show up at work again. You basically have zero money. You have spent every single thing they've given you just to be alive, to show up for work again. There's no savings, there's no retirement, there's no nothing. It's a hopeless, terrible life. And that's what we do to millions, tens of millions of people in America. That's what their life is. And that's beyond shameful. But anyway, so gets to a certain point, and this was happening before COVID. Remember, there's that whole push for the $15 an hour minimum wage before COVID. It was already happening before COVID that people were sick and fed up of this ridiculous low salary bullshit, right? So that had already gotten started. Laws have been passed in many states, blah blah blah. Then COVID interrupted it, but now we're back on track to get everybody back to $15 or towards $15 an hour. But $15 an hour is double minimum wage, double what these people are getting. And even that is not great, but at least $600 a week, you can have some version of dignity. You have to find yourself a $1,000 a month apartment and then make do with the $1,000 you have left. That's basically where you are. But at least that's theoretically possible. When you're making $290 a week, it's not theoretically possible for you to own an apartment and have food and have clothing and brush, and go to the dentist and go to the doctor and go to the supermarket. How is that going to happen? You can't do it. You cannot live a human life on that salary. Yet we expect people to show up for work and do that. Thick. But anyway, so you push people to a certain point. They say, you know what? It's not even worth me coming to work. And I'm sure, I'm sure you've had wives or girlfriends who are like that, especially if they have kids. And that's another ridiculous thing we do in this country, right? If you have kids, daycare costs $1,000 a month. So if you have 2 kids in daycare, it's a couple of thousand a month for daycare. So for a woman working, it costs her $25,000 just to leave her kids in daycare and then and that's after the tax and whatever. So she's not making $40,000, $50,000. There's basically no point in showing up. You're losing money by going to work. By the time you're basically back to that $2.90 a week minimum wage. I mean, that's even if you're being paid $40,000, that's what you're going to end up with. So a lot of people just, choose not to work if the woman's not capable of earning enough money to make sense. They say, fuck it, I'm going to stay at home and watch the kids. It's just not, there's not even any point to going out and earning $30,000 and spending $25,000 to have the kids in daycare. What do you make it? And $30,000 is I don't even know what that is. Let's see, if we take $30,000 divided by 52 weeks in a year, assuming they pay you for vacations. Yeah, that's 600. That's 15 bucks. So 15 bucks an hour is 30,000 bucks roughly. That's not enough to have. That's not enough to leave your 2 kids in daycare and go to work. Doesn't make any sense. You're net negative on the equation. You've got to, and that's forget about taxes and crap. So really, unless you're making 40 is probably the bare minimum it's worth it for a woman to leave her kids in daycare and go to work. Anything less than 40, there's no point in working. And for everybody's going to have that breaking point, right? Where whether you do it as an economic lesson or whether you do it just because that's your reality, you realize at some point, I can't work for this wage. So wave after wave after wave of people start asserting themselves with their employers and they start demanding better wages. That then will roll costs uphill, right? Labor costs increase, but it's not just the employer's direct labor cost, it's a labor cost of the people in the mines in Brazil who are making the raw materials, and the people who work on the ships and the people who do the trucking. Everybody's asking for raises, and all these labor costs are inputting and driving all the prices up until even the last raise you gave no longer works. It's not enough anymore because now all the prices went up again. So what happens? So the employer raises his prices. That then kicks back down to the employees who can't afford the hamburgers that they're making at the McDonald's because the Big Mac is now $7 or whatever idiotic price it is these days. And now you have another round of inflation. But there's no way that's not going to happen. It takes ages for there to become an equilibrium where things calm down. So maybe the next round of price increases is a little bit lower, and then the next round of wage demands are a little bit lower, and the price increase is lower, and the wage demand is lower, and eventually they find a point where everybody can survive at some level that they feel okay about. But you're never going to get it right the first week. Not the first week. I mean the first year of the cycle, the first 2 years. It takes years to find the balances in all these different industries that are crisscrossing each other. Years. And that's without this bullshit of the Fed interfering and the government interfering and throwing all this extra money into circulation. That screws everything up anyway. So that's where we are. And that's why when the Fed was saying that they were going to stop raising rates, and when people said the Fed's going to reverse, I was like bullshit. None of these people understand how this works. And it's horrifying. It really is. Anyway, so now that we've talked about that, we can now look at the stocks we want to play. It's so crazy. All right, anyway, so so ugly. Jesus Christ. I don't even want to talk about that. All right, anyway, so if we ever stop sinking, well, all right, I don't want to do too many things. All right, is this fresh? This has to be fresh. Okay. Wow. 42.45. So we're down 250 Well, what was that? 45 or 46? 45.20. 45.20. 42.20 is what? 300 points, right? Yeah, 300 points. Is that's a 5? Yeah, 5. Okay. So we're down 300 points, which is not that much. It's really not a big correction. 300 divided by 4520, 6.6%. So we're down 6.6% so far. We are probably on the way to a 10% correction, and 4520 times 0.9 is 4068, which is basically what the 5% rule is telling us, right? We should fall down to the 4,000 line. That's our expected drop. And we're not there yet because look at the RSI. This is only a 60-minute chart. So let's find a weekly chart or something like that. That's the NASDAQ. Okay, here you go. So 4068 is way back here, back to where we were in May. And this is where we said fuck it and cashed out our portfolios. Because back then I was worried we would start going this way, but we didn't. We instead went up and had a nice fun rally, but now it's all kind of reversing itself. But back in April, I decided that this was about as good as it was likely to get for the rest of the year. Now, it didn't mean we weren't going to go up and down, but it did mean that I thought that was pretty much where we'd wind up at the end of the year. We had this crazy rally in June and July. And since then, it's been unwinding. So we're probably going to unwind all the way back to where we started. All right, so here's where we cashed out the old portfolios. Here's where we took 20% of that money and put it back into the new portfolios, basically at the end of May, like here. And then we filled up our portfolios. And now, in fact, just a couple of days ago, we doubled down on our hedges. We didn't double down on our hedges because we thought it was going up. We doubled down because we thought this was going to crash. So you can see this RSI is getting oversold. You don't usually get a lot further down than here on the RSI. See how that happens? So hopefully this is the end. And maybe this is going to hold. Maybe the 200-day moving average is going to hold. And this one also, the MACAD, usually when you're coming down this far, except the thing is we're not crossing, right? You need to cross. That's usually the end of rallies when this comes back up. So that's a concern because this is not done. It'd be weird if the RSI goes lower than this, but it can. And we'll see what happens. But again, valuation wise, yeah, I think 4,000. I think really your equilibrium is going to be down around here. But that's not going to make it over either, because still there are people who need to get this until you see $15 in a minimum wage map. Let's see. Minimum wage map US. I gotta tell you, it's something that Google is just really better at than anything else. So here's the map. $19. Oh, I should have. Whoops, 2000. But then you got to anytime past month. Is that a minimum wage map? Oh, it doesn't work. All right, let's go to year. Images. Right? Past year, correct. Oh, here you go, 2023. Thank you. Can you see that? Probably not. Control ++++. All right. So here you are. Here's the evil states, the 20 evil states. 1, 2, oh, nope, not them. Well, 875, not really better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yep, still about 20. And then who else? You got Montana, 995. That's obviously no good. 1010 is no good. 1010 is no good. I mean, like not even trying, right? Who else? We're gonna give them a pay. I guess. Oh no, we counted New Hampshire. All right, so then you got about 4 or 5 other states. Oh, Alaska is 1085. I mean, if you're under, if you're under 12, you're really not doing much better. What, 50% better, but it's still ridiculous, right? It goes 450 a week instead of 300 a week. 300 a week. Think about that number. Think about, try to go through a week with $300 and not spend any other money. It's hard to say because obviously your bills, but if you don't pay any of your bills, then I guess you can walk around with $300. But paying cash for everything and trying to get through a week with $300, including putting money aside for rent and whatever else, just sick. Anyway, so California 1550, 1420, 1575, 13, blah blah blah. We're not, until everybody on this map is 15 or higher, this is not over. You cannot live on those wages. And that filters up because, as you know, when you work in an office, right, there's the cleaning people, they get paid the least money. And you've got those people, and you can sit there and say, oh, I'm so much better than cleaning people and I've gone to college and blah blah blah, but they still gotta live somewhere. They still have to get up and get dressed and eat food and things like that. They still got to go to the dentist. They got to go to the doctors for their checkups. They might need some pills. I mean, you can't just look at people and say I'm going to pay them subhuman wages and they'll show up like however they manage to crawl in here and do that function, because I'm not going to do it. You're not going to sit there and clean the toilets at your office, right? I'm sure somebody had to at some point, but everything keys off those people. Everything keys off the lowest paid people in the office, and there's a rung. And then it's always, if he gets a raise, then I get a raise because I sure as hell want more money too, blah, blah, blah. And it all kicks up. So when the least of us is being paid fairly, then you can be pretty sure everybody is being paid fairly. But when you allow the least of us to be paid ridiculously substandard wages, then it's a sort of a sink that pulls down the salaries for the whole state and the ability to live for the whole state. So that's why you have to. This has to get fixed, and in the very least, you would have to see everybody in around this, whatever color this is, $13, $12, $13. Nothing below that grade, nothing of this color for sure. 17. Who's getting 17? Oh, DC's getting 17. Look at that. Good for you, DC. And see, and Washington has 1575, and DC's got 17, and neither one of those places exploded, and the cities didn't collapse. Somehow everybody managed to function. Just it's like paying people enough to live didn't destroy all the businesses in the city. Anyway, so that's where we are. Until this is fixed, this cycle is never fixed. You can stamp it down, you can pretend it's not there, but it's only going to come back and snap up at you again. So anyway, where are we? Okay, so we talked about that. We talked about that. This is not the right week. Why am I looking at the wrong week? It was Wednesday, but it's not this Wednesday. do that. Let's bring up Mr. Bing. Bing. See if we can have some fun with the AI as well. So did that EIA report ever come in? Trillions and trillions of dollars they spend. Still can't get a freaking report up. Wow. All right. Does anybody have a question, I wonder? Nope. Hope everybody's there. Things working? Looks like it's working. All right. Chat. Where's the chat? Chat. Okay. Oh, they make it so crowded and ugly. Watch list. So that brings us down to the watch list, right? So we go back and we check out the watch list. We've done this first in December, but it was really, the watch list comes about because while I'm looking for trade of the year, I do something like the college basketball tournament, right? Where you have like 64, however many stocks. So I'll go through thousands of stocks and I'll find about the top 100 to play in the bracket. So last year, my filters that I was looking for were stocks that had, because of the expected recession and because of the economic and because of inflation and everything else, I wanted stocks that had very little debt. I wanted stocks that had a high profit per employee ratio. And why is that? Because that means that when you do have to give your people raises, and everybody has to give their people raises, it's inevitable. So when you do have to increase salaries, if you have a high profit to employee ratio, you're going to be less affected by the raises, right? So Walmart does not have a high profit to employee ratio. So when they have to raise the wages to their workers, it hits their bottom line pretty hard. Okay, but Apple, who makes $1 million per employee, can give each employee a pretty large raise without it bothering them. So they'll make $950,000 per employee. What's the difference, right? Even if they give $50,000 raises. So that's how it matters. So when you only pay people, you know, $20,000 a year like Walmart, and you have to give a $2,000 raise, that really hits your bottom line. So that's the kind of filter we're using. So it's about that. So no debt, not no debt, but reasonable, low debt, high profit per employee ratios, and also things that were generally not going to be supply chain constrained. They don't have too much dependence on, on not too much of the dependence on the supply chain. Also, not too many inflationary items that are out of their control. There are a lot of filters like that to try to decide who we wanted the most. But I had written at the time, we're looking for blue chip companies, low debt, low PE. Oh yeah, low PE too, of course. Reasonable anticipated growth. We're including legacy prices from December. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so Apple is the king of everything. Obviously, we want Apple anytime it gets cheap. It was cheap in December when we put it on the list. It was $130, which is crazy cheap. We bought it then. That was, well, it was the first thing I'm sure here, but it was the first thing obviously we added to the butterfly portfolio, just because Apple was way too cheap. It's $150. It was still too cheap. We had we actually made a fortune on Apple because we did go heavy on it in December, and then we closed out our portfolios in April. So we were thrilled that it was 155 or 165. But that's fine. So it is now currently in the butterfly portfolio and the LTP from May when we started our new portfolio. So from here, we came back into that price. We're happy with it. Allstate Insurance. insurance companies have a lot of reserves. So they actually benefit from higher interest rates. They're forced to put a lot of their reserve money into bonds. They're not allowed to gamble with it. They can't buy stocks or whatever. They have to basically put their money into treasury stocks and things like that, and treasuries and bonds and things like that, that are supposedly safe. But anyway, so for the insurance companies, they generally will take short-term notes so that they don't get killed when rates go up, although the speed that the Fed raised rates really hurt the insurance companies a lot, because they raised it so fast that even the short-term bonds took a huge hit, because the short-term bond you buy in January, when the Fed funds rate is 2.5% or 1.5% in January, and then at the end of the year the Fed funds rate is 4%, you've now lost 3% on your bond. You know, if you got a 2-year note, you're down 3% on your 2-year note. That's a nasty hit for an insurance company to take, but it still doesn't kill them. If they had taken out, like the banks, right, that got screwed recently, if they had taken out 5-year notes and 10-year notes at the 1% level or 2% level, and then rates go up to 5%, they're losing 3% times the remaining years on the bond. So they're losing 3 times 9, let's say, is 27. You can't lose 27% on money that's supposed to be safe, right? Banks will gamble more so than insurance companies. So you've got this big hit from the losses the banks, the insurance companies have taken while the Fed went boom and raised rates. But from now on, they're getting 7% on their money. They used to get 2 or 3%. Oh dear, my voice is not holding up for this. So they used to get 2 or 3%. Now they're going to get 7%. They're going to make much more money going forward. Other than, of course, natural disasters and so on and so forth. So you have to think about like what this company really is investing in. Air Products is a specialty, well, it's air, it's gas, it's specialty, not chemicals, it's gases. Cool company in New Jersey, right where I used to live. So they never really break down. They don't really break down because there's just it's such a specialized niche company that that makes so much freaking money. It's such a great gig. You know, nobody's jumping into their business. It's not worth going after them to get half of their money and building up a whole company and trying to wrestle your way into all of their connections and so on and so forth. So it's not much of a competition for it, but you know, they make what they make. It's just a nice little business. So I love that kind of thing. So when you look at it from the perspective of the butterfly portfolio, this is perfect. We'd like to buy them here in the middle of the zone. And then we're going to always sell, we'll sell the calls, we'll sell the puts. Whenever they dip down, we sell puts. Whenever they go up, we sell calls, done. Wash, rinse, and repeat forever and make a fortune. It's fantastic kind of stock to hold and sell puts and calls against. ARCC, you know, they're just not getting any sort of movement, but also nice middle-y stock. Boeing really still can't get their stuff, they can't get their mojo back. There's always something going on there. They've got a lot of problems, but you know, it's Boeing, and they've got here. Oh, here, this is why I have this up here. How many planes does Boeing, B-O-E, Boeing have on back order? Well, you know what I'm saying. Just hit tab. Now, it's not, you have to check, but at least it gives you an idea. You know, it's like it's a ballpark sort of thing. So they have 41, I'm sorry, not 41, $411 billion worth of planes on back orders. Okay. How many planes does BA ship in a year? See, and then you just go over to Stockopedia. Here we go. And we hit BA. Say so 450. So basically, they have a 10-year backlog, which is what I expected. And if you look up Airbus, you'll find the same thing. So they have a 10-year backlog too. So what does that mean? Well, that means, first of all, customers aren't going to switch from, they're not going to jump out of line at Boeing and go to Airbus, right? Because they got their order in at Boeing, they got their place in line. It's like being, it's like when you're at the supermarket and you decide to switch. The people have their planes on a delivery schedule. They're going to get them when they get them. And if they switch, they're going to have a hard time going in. Now, of course, they steal each other's customers and they will promise them a better place in line, blah, blah, blah. But in general, Boeing and Airbus are not going to steal each other's customers. They both have a 10-year backlog. They both can't possibly make enough planes every year to satisfy the demand. So here's Boeing. And they went through a slump cycle. They're a cyclical company. They made a lot of money. They had to then invest in the next cycle of planes. As they start investing in the next cycle of planes, their customers know that. And so they stop ordering the planes, the old planes. And then Boeing has to do R&D, 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 and then they have to build the manufacturing from the R&D that says build this kind of plane, and they build this kind of plane, and then they get, then they build up their order book again, and then they're into the beginning of their delivery cycle. But they're not idiots. When they get back to $100 million, they'll be making $10 billion a year, and you can buy the whole freaking company for $118 billion. So you can't, well, obviously we had everything was grounded too. That was a problem, right? Deliveries weren't done and all kinds of stuff happened here. But, we're out of that problem. We're out of the COVID cycle where there are no planes flying, basically. So nobody's ordering new planes. So we're out of the COVID cycle. We're getting back to a normal cycle. And in a normal cycle, these guys are going to drop $10 billion to the bottom line. And you can see it, as many planes as they can possibly deliver will be accepted over the next 10 years. They can't make enough planes to chew through the backlog they have now, and more people are going to order over the next 10 years. So this is like one of the easiest things you could possibly bet on right now, is that Boeing is going to go higher. What a phenomenal thing to know, right? It's not going back. It might go to 140, but if it does, you just buy more. So you buy some, and if it goes to 140, you buy more, because it's insane if it goes to 140. And over the course of time, it's going to be back over 300. And I said here, I'd like a little more pullback, because they're going to lose $2 billion this year, and people don't like that. People don't like it, even though no matter how much you explain it to people, the fact that they're going to show a loss for most of this year, maybe all of this year, but they're going to show a loss, is going to keep investors from putting money into them. So hopefully we get a better pullback than we got so far. Then we've got Best Buy. I think this is also insane. They made, I wrote that. Okay, it's good. It's good to see all the work I did today. So all this, right, that I did this with every single stock, things like this. I'm looking up stuff, I'm checking things and seeing where we are. So, and these are the ones that made the list. There are some that didn't even make the list. So Best Buy made $1.22 in Q2, because again, certain businesses, different cycles, right? So Best Buy, what happens? They make all their money at Christmas. Not all their money, but they make a big chunk of money at Christmas, more than double a normal quarter. So in a normal quarter, they make $1.22. For argument's sake, I mean, say it's typical, but they make $1.22 in 3 quarters, and then in 1 quarter they make like $2.50. So we did the math, and we said this plus this, they're going to make $6.10 per share. So that means they're trading at 11 times earnings. It doesn't look like it when they make $1.22, but that's because you have to take into account the fact that they're going to have a Christmas cycle. That's how their business works. Now, then you got to think about are the iPhones coming out and how many iPhones, and again, I could, all this stuff is checkable, right? So, what percentage of Apple sales go through Best Buy? If I didn't have to wait the time I'm waiting right now, this is how impatient I am about things. If I didn't have to wait, I would love this stuff. But it's so annoying for me to wait 30 seconds for it to finish telling me what it found. Okay. Best Buy, blah, 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 blah. Best Buy, blah, blah, blah. See, garbage. Okay. According to Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, Best Buy accounted for 13% of Apple's iPhone sales. Oh, wow. Okay, Apple. So Apple sells the most. So Apple stores sell by far the most. These guys sell as much as AT&T though. There's the takeaway. Best Buy is as important of a seller as AT&T or Verizon. Basically, it's 40 and 45. See, these guys all add up to like 45 or a little less. So this is almost all of Apple sales right here. Here's your spots. It's Best Buy, AT&T, and Verizon. Everybody else in the world sells 15% of the phones. And that includes Amazon, which doesn't for some reason get mentioned here. Oh, wait. Oh, because when you talk about online sales, that's interesting. So of all phones, they sell 15%, but online phones, Amazon kicks their asses. But phone sales apparently are heavily slated to walk-in traffic, not so much not as many people buy a phone online. Wow, Apple is Amazon is 50% of online sales. That's crazy. So Best Buy, second largest online seller of phones, 13% market share. It's kind of hard to figure out. They have 13% of the total phone sales. They have a 13% online market share compared to I'd have to ask 5 more questions to get to that. But anyway, they're a very important seller of Apple phones. Therefore, here's the thing though. But Best Buy and by the way, we're doing this because this is what I want you to understand. This is the process to analyze stocks, to think about all the different factors that come into making the play and the timing. And then you say, well, if that's true, then this. If that's there, here, then this. Then you got to think about what other macro factors and what's the timing of the macros to decide whether now is important to pull the trigger now or whether we can sit back and watch it for another quarter. So the iPhones are selling now, and they're selling in great quantities. That's driving traffic to Best Buy and Verizon and AT&T, and we want to buy AT&T as well. That's also on our list. And Apple's also on our list for that matter. So Apple's going to have a party, and these guys are going to have a party because they haven't had a new phone to sell for a little while. So it's going to have, so Apple's sales are, so they're selling 46 billion, right, of sales. And if we look at T, and their market cap, their market cap is only $14 billion. And they're selling $40 billion worth of phones. AT&T, hello? Did I do something wrong? AT&T is $107 billion, almost 10 times what they are. And they sell $120 billion worth of crap. Therefore, even though they sell the same amount of iPhones, it's going to have much less of an impact on AT&T or Verizon than it will on Best Buy. Best Buy will be the most impact, and obviously Apple. They've got to be good for a couple of $100 billion. I mean, they make $100 billion, so how could they not? $2.69 trillion company. Oh, $400 billion. They sell 400. I mean, that's almost as much as Walmart. And oh, by the way, this is an important concept. We double count things so often that we don't even think about it, because when Walmart sells an iPhone, it goes on Walmart sales figure, right? It's a sold iPhone at Walmart, but it also is a sold iPhone at Apple. Apple sold a phone at Walmart. Walmart sold the phone to you, right? Not only that, but Intel sold a chip and Qualcomm sold a chip, and they've got that written up on their thing, and then Apple takes the chip and sells it again. So when you look at the GDP and all these numbers, it's grossly inflated because we double and triple count things. We count the chips that go into the phones. We count those sales as profit and profit from a company. Then Apple resells the chips, and we count those sales again with profit. And the profit is new, but it's a sale price really that's inflated. And that's what your GDP is. It's the sale price of the phone. But the phone is being sold. If you go from Qualcomm to Apple to Walmart, you're selling the same phone 3 times. And this is, and again, when you talk about selling the same phone 3 times, it's $400 billion times 3 is $1.2 trillion. Because the markups, they're whatever they are, but you get the point. It's not a little thing. It's an $800 billion exaggeration of our GDP just on Apple products. Our GDP, that's why when you hear this $25 trillion GDP, it's such bullshit, because the way we structure things now, the way we report things now, it makes it a mess. And that's why when you say, why doesn't this economy throw off more money, and why can't we pay our bills? This is why, because it's a pretend economy. But anyway, point being, not that, all side issue I had to point out. The point being that Apple is its own thing, but AT&T and Verizon are not the major beneficiaries in a proportional way to iPhone sales. Best Buy is. Best Buy is going to be most affected by iPhone sales, will have the most positive impact, will drop the most to their bottom line compared to others, even though everything's being double counted or triple counted. Anyway, all right. Then you got Barclays. I like them. Oh, I'm sorry. And so it's all about Best Buy is going to have an immediate catalyst. We need to buy them before everybody realizes how valuable they are. So that gets a double check mark for us. Somebody can remind me about this too, so we can actually do something about it. Boeing is not in a hurry. In fact, we're hoping they pull back. Well, we'll do it going forward. We're going to go back on everything. Barclays, no particular upcoming catalyst, and things are still a little shaky, so we stay away from them. Here's BurgerFi. BurgerFi is just a little hamburger chain, and I just think that you're buying a growing little hamburger chain, and for some reason nobody wants them. But again, there's no impending catalyst, so we'll see what they say about the quarter. But I am inclined to buy a nice position in this thing at this point. I think they might have some somewhere. I really do like them. I don't understand the pricing. Beyond Text is one of their Pfizer's COVID partner, and I talked about that. I said get a handle on. I'd like to get a handle on sales of vaccine, but it seems cheap to me. Pfizer estimates. See now, BioNTech doesn't get around. They don't go around like making speeches all the time, but Pfizer CEO sure does. So I found information on him saying 80 million doses total are going to be sold of the vaccine. He was talking about 80 million doses in America of the vaccine. Then I say, well, figure they're basically 50-50 with Moderna, because that's what it was last time. And so Pfizer BioNTech's $100 dose, $8 billion, $100 a dose is $8 billion. Half goes to these guys, half goes to, it says 4 and 4, half goes to the retailers, which and WBA is one of those retailers, and half goes to Pfizer. So now we're down to $2 billion. And then figure half of that is profit. And that's gonna, and then that, in that case, over the course of this year and next, it should pump up BioNTech's profit by 50%, which means obviously when they start reporting it. So when's my pressure point? My pressure point is when they start reporting the vaccine doses, and they only just right now started. So the earnings that are coming up, they will not have them incorporated, but they will give guidance on the vaccine. So we have to think about possibly getting in before earnings, because we don't want them giving guidance on the vaccine sales if it's going to be a big thing. So that's the timing. So you have to, you really kind of have to have a calendar that says, this is when we want to watch that. This is when we want to watch that. That's what you do when you go over stuff. BXMT, that's Blackstone's trust, mortgage trust, stupidly cheap. This is ridiculous, but people are just thinking these things are toxic. They won't touch them. Citibank, perfectly good bank, is priced like it's busted. It's crazy. Cheesecake Factory. This is just stupid at this point. Last time we looked, 3150 was 10.5x. They have in no way, shape, or form guided down or disappointed investors or had a bad quarter. Nothing. They are still the same Cheesecake Factory. If you go there, not tonight, but if you go there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you will wait in line, and they will hand you those things that light up that shake when you do. It's the same Cheesecake Factory with the same lines, higher prices on the menus. People pay it. They don't care. Nobody's going to the Cheesecake Factory to get a cheap meal, right? It's a semi-nicer place to go. People go there because they want to get a fairly nice meal, and so it's a treat. And people are not really freaking out about whether they spend $100 for 4 people or whether they spend $120 for 4 people. That's not going to make or break your decision to go to the Cheesecake Factory, which is interesting, because if you go to McDonald's and you're used to spending $40 at McDonald's, and now you're spending 50 or 60, once you get over 50, people start getting pissed. Because it just, in your mind, it just seems so crazy, right? Even though you used to take 2 20s at McDonald's and not think twice about it. You're like, here you go, it's 36, 38, 40, whatever. That was nothing. You're like, oh, $10 a person, that's great. But now it's much more than that, and people are basically just getting real, and they're getting pushback. All these chains are getting pushback on prices. Anyway. Cheesecake Factory is not in that category. Cheesecake Factory is American Express money. It's your whipping out your credit card and putting it on your credit card, and whether you put down 100 or 120 is not really making and breaking your evening for that kind of thing. You planned on spending money. So they don't have the pricing pressure. They don't have the same problems that fast food places does, but they're being lumped in the category. And that's the problem with, the big problem with ETFs and category trading and things like that is exactly that, and algo trading too. They broadly categorize things. It's like profiling, right? You're profiling Cheesecake Factory. Oh, it's a food place. They have food. It's quick service. Blah blah blah. But it's not like that. It's a different kind of place. CIM is another REIT, and also being treated so badly for no good reason. They have not. Also, earnings at 200 million. It's still 6 times earnings, and whether they guide up or down, it's a matter of what it's a matter of what they do at the next thing. They're going to guide up, or they're going to guide down. But again, we absolutely can make the math work on this. I think we already have it somewhere, but we can absolutely make the math work and make that a good trade. Cleveland Cliffs. The biggest problem with Cleveland Cliffs is they go, they decided that they're going to buy U.S. Steel, and that's scary. I don't want them to buy U.S. Steel. I can't imagine how they can work out the financing buying U.S. Steel where they don't put themselves in under incredible pressure to make money. Under incredible pressure that may be unrealistic is more to the point. Crocs. Crocs screwed. Oh, it's funny. I say the same thing. I wasn't reading it. I just suddenly realized I wrote that. Crocs screwed themselves by buying another shoe brand called Hey Dude, which has nothing like Crocs. Hey Dude. Oh God. Do not let me sing. All right. Hey Dude. So this is Hey Dudes. Look, I imagine they know what they're doing and they know what their customers like, but to me, I don't like these at all. And why would I don't know. It's just confusion to me. I go to a Crocs store and I go to buy Crocs. I don't go to buy Hey Dudes, but that's what they're selling. But it fits their formula. In their case, it's easy to manufacture. It has a higher price point. They've already got the retail space. So instead of having, you know how when you go to the Crocs store, they got like 3 of the exact same shoes filling up 3 lines of the rack, and then there's another exact shoe with 3 lines of the rack. They don't need. I'm sure they figured that out. They're like, we don't need all that space, so let's find something else. But to me, it should have been something similar. I think to me, it should have been something similar, because I'm not going to Crocs to buy those kind of shoes. If I'm going to buy those kind of shoes, I'm going to go to a proper shoe store like Timberland or something like that, and get a closed shoe that to me is much nicer and classier. But again, I don't know if I'm a typical consumer anymore because I'm getting old. But the point is, they felt that they had all this extra space. They somehow felt that the diversity of the selection would bring in more people and the cross-selling and blah 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 blah. So they bought this company. It has been a kind of a nightmare integration for them, and we already have them in the long-term portfolio. We're probably going to roll down. They'll work it out and they'll figure out the mix, but that was a mistake they made, and they made a mistake, and we should have been a little more cautious about it, because it really was effectively a mistake. What the purchase of Hey Dude has not been that helpful to them and cost them a lot of money and put them in debt. But meanwhile, company still makes money, still does well, still has a very low PE, so it's all dealable, but they're down now and they're going to stay down for a while. CRISPR, there's a lot of guys who do this, but this is the one you think of when they do it. Anyway, this gene editing is going to be, huge in the future. Like when you watch Star Trek and they have these, in Star Trek, they've got the thing that they just wave over your face and the bruise goes away and the cut goes away. It's like, yeah, they're going to be able to do that, and they will be able to do all that stuff. It's all, frankly, a lot sooner than 200 years from now, or 300 years from now, whenever Star Trek is set. But it's hundreds of years in the future, and there's no way it's going to take us that long to get to that kind of technology. But this is part of it. This is fixing your DNA. You have a DNA deficiency, something is wrong with you genetically. They can edit your freaking genes. They can take your genes and take them out and take some samples out, and they can take your genes and fix them and take the strand and put it here and change this one to that one and do. It's like it's like rewiring a computer, and then they put it into you, and they replaces the bad genes. It's insane. And AI is going to leapfrog them to a whole different thing. And again, they're not the only ones doing this. There are many companies like this using this technology. They happen to have the best. They got the name nailed down first, and they were lucky. but they are also the industry leader. They've got plenty of money. Oh, I said that. It's funny how my mind loops around to the same thing. They have $1.8 billion. So they've got a few years. They're losing $450 million a year right now. They've got $1.8 billion. But this is absolutely the future. It's not like like I said with Star Trek, like, you have a thing that you wave over someone's face and it makes a cut go away. You're not giving that up. It's not going to go away. The company that invents it, maybe it won't be. Now, the problem is maybe it won't be CRISPR that really develops it, but they're one of the leading guys now. So, and I think they're going to certainly make their share of cash from this kind of stuff. Disney, also insanity. Why? But what's going on now is Disney just announced they were starting to pick up, but then they said, oh, you know what? We're going to spend $60 billion over the next basically 10 years. And it's $6 billion a year. They only make $7 billion a year. They're going to spend $6 billion a year for the next 10 years to expand mostly their overseas parks, not these parks. These parks are pretty full. They don't have that much space left. But, Tokyo Disneyland, Paris Disneyland, maybe build a new Disneyland. Also the cruise ships that cost a couple of $1 billion each. They're going to make more cruise ships. So the next 60 years, they're going to drastically expand their park operations. They include the boats in their park operations. And so I'm saying, well, the book value of the company now is $90 billion. So if they're spending $60 billion, you're talking about a 2/3 expansion, a 60% expansion in the business. And since $9 billion drops $7 billion to the bottom line, then $6 billion basically going to drop about 10% to the bottom line. So earnings are going to come up about $600 million a year, and that's not including other parts of their business that would grow naturally anyway. So what you're looking at now is saying, okay, so if they're currently making $7 billion, if they expand every year $6 billion and they drop the same 10% to the bottom line, that's going to be $600 million a year plus in year one. So it goes 7, 7.6, 8.2, 8.8, 9 point whatever. All right. So what on earth else do you want to invest in? I want to invest in a company that's going to do that. Again, they're not putting the money into making a lot of movies. They're not putting the money into ESPN. They're not putting the money into streaming services. They are making a significant investment in going back to the basics. And Iger's not going to be CEO for much longer. But he is setting the course for what the company is going to focus on. He's forcing the company to focus on the basics and be a park and hotel and restaurant and cruise line operator for the next 10 years. He wants that part of the business to be the main focus of the company for the next 10 years. So as he's leaving, he's setting up this direction for the company that's going to be very hard for them to change. And thank you, I think that's a great idea. So again, there's no hurry on this because it's already been announced, and investors, in fact, don't like it. They don't like investing in the future. Investors do not like to put money into things that aren't going to pay off tomorrow. But I would like to own Disney. I want to own Disney for the rest of my life. I want my kids to own Disney. So, and by the way, when I say own, I will like get out. If it goes up 50%, I'm going to sell it, but then I'll buy it again. But I do want to own Disney-ish for the next 20 years. And then when I die, I will leave it to my kids, and my kids will own Disney, and they'll get dividends and make money for the rest of their lives off of that stock. I do want that. I want exactly what Bob Iger wants. I want a solid, dependable, long-term company that's going to just rake in cash year after year. I don't see anything wrong with that. Oh, gotta wrap it up soon. Any questions? Or am I just being so entertaining? Let's see. Questions. There are questions. Oh dear. Let's see. Bernie says, Apple Butterfly portfolio does not have a short covered to it. What do you suggest for January? I don't know. I'll have to take a look when when we do the reviews. Apple short caller. What do you suggest? Again, ask me in chat or I'll get to it when we do the reviews. No, I don't think it's an emergency at the moment. Boeing just lost a contract to Air France KLM, winner take all. Air France was pleased to order 50 Airbus, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but that's going to happen. I mean, that's just the nature of their business. That's from Rick. The deal will accelerate renewal of long-haul fleet. The first deliveries are expected in 2026 to 2023. Yeah, so, again, out of their backlog of 4,500 planes, Boeing did not get this extra 50 planes. You don't know what Airbus did to win the contract. You don't know how much they bent over. You don't know what kind of concessions they made. You don't know if they bumped other customers who were going to be pissed off and go to Boeing because Airbus didn't make a slot for them that they wanted. It's all very, very complicated back and forth on that kind of stuff. And Bernie says, Baba, begging the spinoffs possibly next week. Will this unlock value? Yeah, we had this conversation in chat. I'm not playing with the Chinese companies like that. It's not, after the way we got burned on China Telecom, well, they just decided that they would no longer trade the shares and destroy their value. The government, our government, decided that they will no longer allow China Telecom to be listed on the U.S. exchanges, which dropped the value considerably. There was no bounce, there was no nothing, and it just made it worse and worse. And eventually we capitulated. So no, thank you. If you want to do a trade, and you want to talk about the best options for it, I'll be happy to do that in chat. But honestly, it's not for me. Lockheed Martin is getting interesting. Boy, usually got a lot of. Why don't you ask these questions in chat instead of like in the webinar? LMT. We'll do this one. So, Lockheed Martin. Yeah, sure, of course. Down 20% is good. I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him more like here, where it's an absolute definite. But this is good. But again, do they have a catalyst? Is there any reason we should be jumping on them now? Here's Dick Sporting Good. My comment here was, "Oh, come on!" I mean, it's just how big. There it is. It's funny. I say, "Oh, come on!" I read that. Then I look over at the chart, and my next words out of my mouth are, "How bad could things be?" Then I go to read it again. I'm like, "Can things really be this bad?" I'm consistent, at least, right? With my analysis. Yeah, come on. I mean, really. And yeah, Dick's had a bad quarter because consumers are hitting the wall and they're cutting back on discretionary spending. Dick's is certainly discretionary spending. Foot Locker is discretionary spending, right? Those kind of things are Nike is discretionary spending. Those companies all got hit hard. And that was an early warning for us to get the frick out of these things and start hedging more, because you can see that's when you see the consumers hitting a wall. People start reporting, wow, nobody came to shop this month. Our quarter got worse and worse and worse towards the end of the quarter. That was what we were hearing on the conference calls. And what does that mean? That means the consumers are running out of money. It doesn't mean people don't wear sneakers anymore, right? It doesn't mean people don't go to McDonald's anymore. When you hear this from CEO after CEO that they're seeing a drop-off in consumer traffic and it's harder and harder to pass on pricing and so on and so forth, that's when you know it's all going to hit the fan. Hitting the fan looks like this. Oh no, he bounced. Well, it doesn't look like that. All right, so whatever the hell happened here, things cheered up. Yeah, so we'll see, and we'll see what the bounce is. I'll go by that. Here's Ford, also crazy cheap. It's a strike. They were going right back up past 15. Now the strike came along, and now they're back at 12. Again, equilibrium eventually, right? The workers will get paid more. Ford will pass along the prices. They will sell more undercoatings. What do they call that, right? Undercoats. They'll sell more undercoats on the cars and try to balance it out. That's no reason to get out. Future fuel, always crazy. And I'm going to wrap it up here. And we're going to take. Let's get through the F's so I remember where we are, as if that's going to help. So future fuel, always crazy. They're basically different kind of biochemical mixes as substitutes for regular diesel and regular gasoline and things. They come up with all these different better bio-friendly ways to do things. So because they're basically an environmental type fuel company, they live off, just like Tesla does, they live off their renewable energy credits, the RINs. So it's all about the renewable energy credits, and that's where most of their profit comes from, just like that's where most of Tesla's profit comes from. The only difference is Future Fuel doesn't manipulate their books as well as Tesla. So in the last quarter, they did not recognize the RIN revenue because the quarter closed before they got back the approval. So instead, they got their RIN approvals in this quarter, got 0 in the last quarter. It's possible, not definite, but it's possible this quarter that at the end of this quarter, they'll get their RINs at the end of this quarter too. So they'll have a quarter with 2 RINs instead of 1. Last quarter, they had 1 with no RINs. But either way, it's the same freaking money coming in over the course of the year. It's not going to change anything. So selling them because they didn't get a piece of paper from, it's like getting paid late by a customer, right? They didn't get the payment until the quarter closed, therefore the quarter closed without the payment, therefore the quarter looked like shit. But that's nothing wrong with the company. This is a fantastic company that makes amazing amounts of money and has phenomenal growth potential. So we're definitely jumping on this one. Oh, and I wrote that too. See, I said bye, bye, bye before the next turn. So we have to, this is one we have to jump on. And we're back to Foot Locker, and Foot Locker is the same, you know, Foot Locker's got that same problem with the consumers. And that's where we are. So we're up to Gilead. I wrote them all up, though. I wrote something about every single one. So I finished what I wanted to do. But next week, unless something very weird happens, we will continue this narrative, okay? Because it's good to go through these things and talk about what we look at when we're looking at stocks and what sort of things we focus on. So I hope everybody had a good time. I had a good time except for my voice going, but I don't know why. I can't talk like I used to. I used to be able to chatter on for hours. Can't imagine. I don't think anything's different. But anyway, so very nice speaking to everybody, and we'll do it again next week, and we'll hopefully get through this list if somebody reminds me. If nobody reminds me, I'll probably talk about something else. All right, take care, everybody. Thanks.